All right, we're back with the men's group summary for May, and this month was spirituality and alignment. And our main theme for this month was really following the book The Alchemist. I think it's such a great book that talks about alignment and spirituality and going on that journey and following your own personal legend. So the book The Alchemist follows a young man named Santiago who is a shepherd, and he continues to have this recurring dream about a treasure that's buried at the Egyptian pyramids. So what he does is he sells his flock and journeys across the desert to find his treasure. And along the way, he meets a couple people. He meets a king, an alchemist. He falls in love with a girl, and all of these people help him understand what the author calls his personal legend. And that personal legend is like a unique path or a calling each person is born to pursue. And the core message is that every man has a personal legend. And the universe will help conspire him to achieve it when he commits to it. And the thing is, most men abandon it because of fear, comfort, obligation of what others expect. And the thing is, the real treasure isn't at the pyramids. It's the transformation. And that only happens when the man has the courage to follow what's calling him, to go on the journey. And the book is essentially a parable for spiritual alignment, where it's telling you to listen to your heart, read the omens in your life or the signs in your life, and trusting that pursuing your path is itself the spiritual practice. And so in our first session, what I did is we had an individual reflection where each guy sort of gathered their thoughts on, I guess, call it that tension between what he's drawn to versus what he feels obligated to. What is his calling that he's not pursuing? And the homework or the assignment, the on your own work for that week was to write out your personal legend in whatever form feels right. It could be in a paragraph, a letter to yourself, a list. It's what is your life meant to stand for? And then we're to bring it to the session next week. And something really interesting that came up in our first session that we talked a lot about was, as a man, being real concrete on what your values are. And some of the guys, what happened was they were like, I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that question before. Like, what are my values? And off the top of the head, they had to sit there and think about it. And one thing that's really important for me is, I think as a man, you have to know right off the top of your head what your values are, because your values are going to guide your decision making, and that's going to be the code that you live by. So my values, which are the values of the group that are there for anybody who is trying to figure it out, doesn't know, can live by those values, are integrity, honor, loyalty, and courage. And I think as a man, you have to have that code. You have to know what your values are that are driving you. And so we moved into week 2, still continuing to talk about the alchemist and using that as our guide. And the core idea for week 2 was that Santiago's real treasure, like all of our treasure, isn't the gold. It was the man he became through going on the journey. And most guys think that they need to achieve something to be fulfilled, but the achievement is just the vehicle. Your personal legend pulls you toward a destination so that the journey can transform you. So Santiago, his personal legend ends up being the journey himself, and it's not the treasure that he was supposed to find at the pyramids. But sort of to answer it more literally, his personal legend is to travel from Spain to the pyramids in pursuit of this treasure, right? And that's the path that he feels called to follow. And so the twist is that when he reaches the pyramids and digs, there is no treasure. And then he finds these refugees and they kind of kick the shit out of him. They beat his ass. And one of them mockingly tells him that he himself once had a recurring dream about a treasure that was buried under a sycamore tree in an abandoned church in Spain. But he wasn't fool enough to chase it. And so what's funny or ironic about that is that Santiago realizes then that the exact church where he started his journey, where he used to sleep with his flock of sheep, that was it. He returns to Spain, digs under the sycamore tree, and finds the actual treasure there. And so the deeper meaning is layered. It's that the literal treasure is always near home, but he would have never found that without making the journey, right? So again, the legend wasn't about the gold. It's about going on the journey and becoming the man who could recognize and claim it. And so along the way on his journey, he learned all of these things, and the transformation was the point. And so the treasure was just the thing that pulled him into the transformation. And I think that is a super powerful idea to land with for each of the guys, and understanding what is it that's calling you towards something specific, but what is you're really being shaped into is a different version of yourself. And so that led us into week 3, where we had our first guest speaker in the men's group, and it was Kevin O'Connor, where he talked about masculinity and prayer. And he framed masculinity in a way that I haven't heard before, and I thought it was really great. Is there's a difference between masculinity and manliness. And I think a lot of what could be considered masculinity is just put on as manliness. So manliness is that external thing. So if you think of anything that you would say, oh man, he's super manly, right? Super manly. And most of that is really like exterior, where the masculine part is more interior. And I think kind of tying it back to week 1 and week 2, his point around masculinity is that, one, knowing your values and what you stand for, having a code and living by that code is very masculine. And then the other part is tying it to the alchemist, is that the masculine is supposed to go on that journey. So you going on that journey, because that is the reward. There is no reward without a journey. That is also very masculine. Right? It's not the things that we have externally. It's not having the nice car or having whatever. It doesn't matter. But any of those external things that we would consider someone to be like manly isn't necessarily masculine. So there is a difference between manliness and masculinity. And then he talked to us about prayer. And I think he did a really great job at explaining prayer to us, because that can sometimes be confusing for people. So he explained that prayer involves like 3 different components: is listening, speaking, and offering. And he really emphasized that gratitude serves as an antidote to entitlement. And Kevin, he described that there's 3 types of prayers, and this was really good to help clear some things up and just be really clear on what prayer can be. So he described that there's 3 different types of prayers, and there's one that includes listening prayers, speaking prayers, and offering prayers, and noted that prayer can be a simple act of connection with a higher source. And I thought that was really great. And as we went into, so Kevin did a great job. We're going to have more speakers come in to talk about certain topics for us. So I'm really excited about that. And week 4 was also awesome. I think it was a great way to kind of close out the month and transition into what June is going to be. But week 4 for May was all about honoring your father. And the question that I posed to the group as soon as we started was, is it hard for you to think about your father? And there was a pause for some guys, and they really had to think about it. And they're like, oh, I never really heard it phrased that way. And so it got everybody to think a little bit. And the important point is that I think it's important to realize that all guys, no matter what your relationship with your dad is like, everybody sort of has a little bit of a complicated relationship with their father based off of the things that they did do or didn't do. And I got this from this book called The Intentional Father by John Tyson. And so a lot of this thought process and these exercises came from that book. And the idea is to start to begin to view them as men. And that kind of separates the distinction between like father and like a regular man, and trying to view them as boys once, right? And a lot of our dads, it's going to be different for everybody, but a lot of them were boys when they became dads. And so the question is, have you ever thought of your dad as a little kid? And when you do that, does it change your view? That's the question to ask yourself. And that was a really great conversation that we all had. Like everybody was super connected and sharing stories. And the homework for that was to write a letter to your dad, to your father, honoring him for all of his greatness that he gave to you. And so for some people that's going to be super easy, and for other guys it's going to be extremely difficult. But the point is to acknowledge your father in that letter. So as that transitions into June, June is all about fatherhood, and June is Father's Day. And so that wraps up May, and that also wraps up the free version of the men's group. We started in 2025, August 2025, and we've gone all the way up to May 2026. And moving forward, the structure of the group is going to change to a paid model, and we're going to have 3 different tiers. We have a Perspire, Inspire, and Aspire. Perspire is going to be $50 a month. Every other week we'll meet, so the first Wednesday of the month and then the third Wednesday of the month. You'll get 2 sessions per month, 1 virtual, 1 in person, access to our Skool community platform. We're going to have a monthly themed based curriculum. So next month is fatherhood, and that's going to be open enrollment. You can start, cancel anytime. The next tier is going to be Inspire. $150 a month. That's going to be a 12-week cohort of real transformation. In that, you'll be able to participate in all of the men's group sessions in the Perspire, but you'll have access to that 12-week cohort where we have 3 phases: foundation, deepening, and integration. There's going to be a max of 8 guys in that cohort, so we keep it intimate and intentional. Those sessions are going to run virtually on the days where the men's group sessions don't happen. Right, so that'll be the 2nd and the 4th week of the month. We're going to have 3 guest speakers in the cohort, so 1 for each month, and there's going to be further resources in Skool for foundation, deepening, and integration. You're going to have priority retreat access and special retreat pricing to the retreats that we're going to have coming up, and that inaugural cohort is going to start on August 3rd and run to October 30th. And then lastly, Aspire. That's going to be $400 a month. The difference being this is going to run in alignment with the Inspire cohort, but you're going to have direct access, customized workouts, and work. And so this is going to be the highest level of coaching. You're going to get everything in Inspire. You're going to have one-on-one coaching calls with me as your coach every other week. You're going to go through a 12-week custom workout program. It's going to be, like I said, aligned with the cohort timeline. You're going to have special retreat pricing, and I'm only taking a cap of 4 guys, so that way they can have direct access to me as their coach for strategy, accountability, and all of their life work. So I'm really excited about this as we move forward and we continue to grow the group and help all of these men out there become the best version of themselves.